Have you ever wondered why your partner seems to love the idea of being with you, but not truly love you? He posts romantic photos, talks about a future together, makes plans, but in private, he seems distant, disconnected, even repelling. And when LGBT topics come up, does he change the subject or become strangely critical? You might be getting used as a shield, a perfect facade to hide who he really is. In this video, I'll show you 5 clear signs that a narcissist is using you to hide the fact that they're gay, and how this may be hurting you emotionally without you even realizing it. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and my purpose with this channel is to show you that the problem was never you. Join our growing community, subscribe to the channel, and hit like. I count on your support. There's something unsettling about being near a narcissist. You feel like you're dealing with someone fake, but can't quite put it into words. He appears confident, charismatic, even admirable on the outside. But deep down, there's an immense emptiness, a void he tries to fill with validation, control, and masks. Narcissists don't have a real identity. They build a persona, an idealized version of themselves meant to attract, manipulate, and hide who they really are. This persona changes depending on the situation, and often includes a normal love life, because that protects them from the truth they fear facing. When it comes to sexuality, narcissists rarely relate to it genuinely. They don't accept doubt in themselves. They can't tolerate ambiguity. If there's anything about their sexual orientation they consider unacceptable, whether due to religion, culture, or social pressure, they will deny it with all their might. And often, they'll use you to prove to the world that they are exactly who they claim to be. This isn't just about being gay and afraid to come out. It's about building a farce where you become an essential part of the lie. You aren't loved. You're needed for the performance. Now, let's dive into the first clear sign of this behavior. First sign, they're obsessed with appearing normal. Have you noticed how he seems to live just to be seen? He doesn't just attend weddings. He needs to be there with you on his arm, smiling for the pictures. He doesn't just talk about having kids. He insists on planning a future full of them, even though you notice he avoids real conversations about it. He presents himself as traditional, simple, old-fashioned values, but everything about him feels overly rehearsed. This obsession with normality isn't random. It's a carefully built act, a character being played with dedication. And you're the main prop in this performance. A narcissist who uses you to hide his sexual orientation isn't looking for connection. He's building a socially acceptable image and using you as living proof of it. He wants to be seen as a family man, a committed woman, someone normal, not because he truly desires that, but because he fears suspicion. And the more he displays himself as straight, the stricter he becomes about any behavior that deviates from the norm. He might even subtly criticize LGBT people, not out of real hatred, but out of fear that something inside him might be discovered. You start to realize he doesn't live these values by conviction. He exhibits them like trophies. Every romantic photo, every comment about family, every public display of affection is part of a narrative he must keep intact. Behind that mask, though, he doesn't see you, doesn't feel you, doesn't love you. You're the perfect symbol to convince the world, and maybe even himself, that he is who he says he is. Now let's move on to the next sign, the one that hurts more than it seems. Second sign, they put on a show of love in public, but withdraw in private. Have you ever felt like a prop in a performance no one told you you'd be cast in? That's what happens when you're with someone who needs to prove to the world that he's normal. He doesn't just want to be with you. He needs to show he is, and he does it dramatically. He posts too many overly romantic photos, uses sweet words in messages he never actually listens to, talks about you passionately in front of friends, as if you were the great love of his life. But when you're alone, everything changes. He withdraws. He shuts down, avoids physical contact, even though he pretends to desire you in front of others. You might try a surprise hug from behind, and feel him almost imperceptibly pull away. A deep kiss feels mechanical. A caress, uninterested. He doesn't connect. He just performs, and it hurts, because you begin to realize you're not being openly rejected. You're being emotionally ignored. He doesn't say he doesn't love you, but he also doesn't show it, doesn't feel it, doesn't live it. The difference between what he shows and what he truly is can be confusing. You start asking yourself, am I imagining all this? Is he just shy? Or does he really feel nothing at all? The answer lies in the details, in the way he avoids looking you in the eyes while touching you, in how he changes the subject when you try to talk about feelings, in how he seems more present on social media than right in front of you. Because for him, Love isn't a connection. It's a narrative, a story he tells to maintain appearances. And you're the main character in that lie. And this falsehood doesn't just hurt, it consumes. Because the more you try to get close, the more he pulls away. And the more he distances himself, the more you start doubting yourself. Now let's look at how he reacts when you begin to question this charade. Third sign, they obsessively deny any suspicion and blame you for being suspicious. You find something, browsing history, a casual conversation, a profile on an app that doesn't match the image he projects. Or maybe you simply start noticing patterns, gestures that feel too cold, exaggerated reactions to certain topics, contradictory behaviors. When you decide to bring it up, you expect at least honesty or vulnerability, but that's not what happens. He denies everything, firmly, angrily, sometimes even with tears. And instead of answering your concerns, he completely shifts the game. Suddenly, you're invading his privacy. You're being paranoid. You're making things up where there's nothing there. He says, everyone sees strange content online. That it means nothing. That you're becoming possessive and insecure. And then, he attacks. He claims you doubt him because you have emotional issues, that you're trying to control him, that you're projecting your own insecurities onto him. You end the conversation confused, unable to understand how you became the villain just for sensing that something was off. This is gaslighting in its cruelest form. He doesn't just deny reality, he makes you doubt your own perception. He doesn't need to prove he's right. He only needs to make you question what you saw, heard, or felt. And worse, he might even temporarily change his behavior. Suddenly, he posts more pictures with you, says more romantic things on social media, pretends to be physically attracted to you, all to reinforce the image he desperately needs to maintain. But internally, he hasn't changed. He's only adjusted the performance. You start to feel like you can't question anything, because every doubt of yours becomes an attack on the masculinity, faith, or identity he built so carefully. And the more you push, the more he shuts down, until you learn to stay quiet, to ignore what you feel, to doubt yourself. And that's exactly what he wants. Now, let's see how he uses stereotypes to sustain this facade. Fourth sign, they exaggerate gender stereotypes to appear straight. Have you ever noticed how he seems to live in an exaggerated version of what it means to be a man or a woman? If he's a man, maybe he cultivates a hyper-masculine image. He's always at the gym, has a thick beard, wears tactical clothes, talks about women in vulgar terms, and insists on proving he's alpha. If she's a woman, maybe she wears heavy makeup, speaks in a baby voice, posts perfect selfies, and obsesses over children and motherhood. Even if she seems emotionally distant from her own family, these behaviors aren't just expressions of personality, they're performances. And when done excessively, they reveal something deeper, a conscious or unconscious effort to fit into what society expects of someone who is heterosexual. The narcissist doesn't just adopt these stereotypes, they amplify them. He needs to show the world he's truly a man, or truly a woman. Because the more he fits into that idealized image, the less room there is for doubts about who he really is. And this goes beyond appearance. He may openly mock LGBT people, not out of real hatred, but out of fear of being associated with them. He might make jokes about effeminate men or masculine women, as if trying to distance himself from even the possibility of being mistaken for someone who doesn't fit the mold. But behind that mask, there's exhaustion. Maintaining this persona is draining. In private, he seems detached, mechanical, sometimes even hostile, as if inside, he's worn out from pretending. Yet, he still insists on continuing. You begin to realize he isn't living his gender. He's performing it. He doesn't feel secure in his identity. So he tries to convince the world he belongs to a specific group, using you as part of that act. And this performance comes at a cost, for him, and especially for you. Now let's explore how he uses another powerful element to keep up this deception. Fifth sign, they use religion and family as shields. Have you ever noticed how he seems to use God, faith, or family almost like armor? He talks about religion with a conviction that feels almost defensive. He uses scripture verses in casual conversations as justification for everything, from personal decisions to judgments about other people. He might insist on going to church, temple, or mosque with you, not out of spiritual connection, but out of a need to be seen as moral, aligned, right with God. And the family? That's another pillar of this construction. He makes sure to appear in photos, at events, on social media. He speaks about children with exaggerated pride, posts messages like blessed or family is everything, even though emotionally, He may be distant in reality. He needs the image of a devoted father, a loving mother, the perfect child, but he doesn't live those roles authentically. This obsession with moral and family image isn't coincidental. It's strategy. Because the more he presents himself as upright, faithful, traditional, the further away he tries to appear from any suspicion. And this goes beyond just wanting to live by certain values. It's a defense mechanism, a way to silence doubts, both external and internal. He's not seeking redemption or spiritual growth. He's building a wall between who he is and what the world believes he is. And you become part of this show. He refers to you as the love of my life, in sermons, at family dinners, in public posts, but at home, he's cold, distant, sometimes even hostile. He tells elaborate fictional stories about your intimacy, your relationship, your future plans, not because he feels them, but because he needs to prove to the world that he has something real. If you have kids together, his role changes completely. In front of others, he's the caring father, the example, the protector, but in private, he seems absent, disinterested, as if the children were part of the facade, not part of his actual life, because for him, family isn't a bond. It's social proof, a prop, a shield against any questioning of who he really is. And this use of faith and family isn't just painful, it's deeply abusive, because he turns sacred things into weapons. And he makes you doubt not only him, but yourself. You're not crazy, you're not paranoid, and you certainly are not blind. You simply sensed something he did everything to hide. You noticed the coldness behind the staged affection, the emptiness behind the perfect image, the lie behind the promise of true love. This isn't about sexuality, it's about use, about manipulation, about someone who needed you not as a partner, but as a facade. And this pain, that feeling of being used, betrayed, invisible, it's real, it's justified, and it matters. You deserve a relationship where you don't have to prove anything to the world, where your love is lived, not displayed, where your intimacy is respected, not turned into advertising. A narcissist doesn't need love, they need a shield, and while they hide behind you, you begin to disappear. But now you know, and knowing is the first step towards stepping out of the role he forced you into. There's no shame in having been deceived. There's courage in recognizing the truth, and strength in deciding you deserve better, because you weren't born to be part of a lie. You were born to live an authentic life, loved, respected, whole. If you saw a bit of yourself in this video, you're not alone. Many go through this silently, thinking they're the only ones. But this story is more common than it seems, and it needs to be told. If this content resonated with you, leave a comment telling me which sign you identified with the most. Share it with someone who needs to see it. And if you enjoyed this video, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. There's much more content coming on toxic relationships, emotional healing, and how to rebuild your life after people who used your kindness against you. This is the kind of conversation that changes lives, and I want to keep having it with you. Remember, you are light. Never forget to shine. See you in the next video.